They have the worst record in the AL. They're bottom 5 in attendance, with a statistically bottom 5 pitching staff, and it is only May. But only 3 years ago, they were nearly favorites to win the World Series, and the reason for their failure is obvious. The White Sox could not replicate the Atlanta Braves strategy.
The Atlanta Braves have signed
Acuna, Christian Riley, Michael Harris.
To understand how the White Sox attempted to replicate the Braves, one needs to know what the Braves strategy actually is. The Braves follow a simple strategy of developing and extending players, but what makes their situation so unique is that they often extend players who are in year 1 or even year 2 in their career, whereas other teams nickel and dime their players, using their arbitration season so that they could have money saved. However, this often results in a player leaving early on in free agency, which is why the Brave strategy has worked in retaining your homegrown talent. But the problem is that there is a lot of risk that comes with it. What if a player so early on doesn't pan out? What if your development fails, and it ends up being a massive overpay? Luckily for Atlanta, they have yet to have that yet, but for the White Sox, it's a completely different story. The man conducting this operation was White Sox general manager Rick Hahn, and after several years of losing, he would famously say, "We're mired in mediocrity. That's not the goal. That's not acceptable. The goal was to put ourselves in a situation to win a championship, and being stuck around 500 doesn't do that." He had a goal of building from within, but first he had to tear down the roster, which he started doing by trading away pitcher Chris Sale all the way over to Boston, and in return, they would get a top third base prospect in Yoan Moncada and a pitcher in Michael Kopech. But the biggest trade that they would make was acquiring pitcher Dylan Cease and outfielder Eloy Jimenez. This would lay out the foundation for the White Sox for a long time. But how did the foundation eventually fall? The year is 2017. The Braves have the best farm system, and the White Sox have the second best. Looking into Atlanta's, they had notable superstars like Ronald Acuna Jr. and Austin Riley, but when looking into Chicago's, it was very well-rounded, with names like Jimenez, Kopech, Robert, Cease, Giolito, and Berger. However, regardless of the talent, they still needed to be developed. But in the meantime, they were already extending young talent. Shortstop Tim Anderson would be the very first of the bunch. He showed potential in the 2016 season and in 2017, but he certainly did need to develop. The next few seasons for Chicago would be prospects coming up over and over again, with the team losing over and over again as well. And heading into the 2020 season, the White Sox hadn't made the playoffs in 11 years. Fans were fed up, and the quote "we're mired in mediocrity" became a staple of the White Sox organization, whereas Atlanta was on the complete other side of their rebuild. The Braves were consistently in the playoffs every year, with superstar production from most of their core, and were able to extend most of them to long-term contracts, which is where the White Sox and Braves were similar, as the White Sox extended their talent when they were still very young. But maybe some of them were even a little bit too young, like extending prospect Eloy Jimenez before he even took an MLB swing. He signed the deal in 2019, and it was a 6-year, $43 million deal. It had a massive risk of failing, but it could also really succeed. He was ranked as the third best prospect in baseball, and according to White Sox GM Rick Hahn, Eloy Jimenez was seen as an important member of the White Sox core, and that core would only grow stronger as the new year approached in 2020. The White Sox would extend 3 more players, such as #1 White Sox prospect Luis Robert, who was even the Offensive Player of the Year as a minor league prospect. But yet again, Luis Robert had never stepped into an MLB batter's box. So the common theme that made the White Sox and the Braves differ in strategy is how early the White Sox were extending talent, and it would continue as 2020 progressed, leading to third baseman Yoan Moncada getting an extension 1 year after his breakout, which he was one of baseball's biggest sensations for several years. Even before he was signed into MLB by the Red Sox in 2015, they had scouted him as a high school kid all the way back in 2010. So it's clear how talented this core was for the White Sox, but it was also a very risky core. So would they actually pan out? On a team basis, Chicago played very good baseball in 2020, specifically the offense, as they were atop the MLB in most statistics. They led the AL in home runs, slugging percentage, and in runs scored, which led to the team fighting to win the AL Central all the way up until the final days of the 2020 season. And while they wouldn't win the division, they would still finish with a record of 35-25. It was good enough for a playoff berth, officially ending their long-term playoff drought. And on a player basis, this team was loaded. They had a Silver Slugger in Eloy Jimenez. They had the AL MVP in veteran Jose Abreu, a Cy Young finalist in Dallas Keuchel, and the runner-up for Rookie of the Year in Luis Robert. So not only did they have good young players, but they also had star veterans like Abreu and Keuchel as well. But when the postseason came around, this team's momentum would completely change. They went from celebrating a postseason berth to celebrating a postseason victory to ultimately losing that playoff series, which would result in the White Sox making a stupid move, which would be firing their manager and replacing him with a 76-year-old. And his name is Tony La Russa. And the craziest part about this situation is that the general manager, Rick Hahn, did not want to hire La Russa as the manager. Hahn wanted someone different, but the owner of the team, Jerry, forced Tony La Russa to be the hire over anyone else. Regardless of this though, the GM Rick Hahn was going to build a contender. He won Executive of the Year award in 2020, and heading into 2021, there were two main factors in the White Sox team building. And those factors were development and aggressiveness, as in the offseason, they would acquire many stars, such as trading for pitcher Lance Lynn and signing a closer in Liam Hendricks. But at the same time, they would maintain development with two of their top prospects. One of them was pitcher Garrett Crochet, a pitcher who threw harder than most at 100 miles an hour, striking out an average of 10 batters through 9 innings, and pitched a 2.82 ERA in 2021. The second prospect would be outfielder Andrew Vaughn, but we'll get back to him later. But with everything happening in the White Sox organization, they would be viewed as a true World Series contender, at least until everything fell apart around them. There were specifically 3 factors that led to the team breaking down, with the first factor being injuries. And I mean from the very beginning, with Eloy Jimenez getting injured in spring training, to Luis Robert getting hurt in May, both of them missing big chunks of this season would lead to the offense stalling at many times. And the second factor to the team breaking was the inconsistency in this offense, because after losing both of their star outfielders, they needed players to step up. However, it just wouldn't happen. Star outfield prospect Andrew Vaughn would really disappoint in his rookie year, putting up poor numbers when the team really needed him. And the third factor to the team breaking was Tony La Russa. It was his first time managing a team in 10 whole years, and it definitely showed up with his controversial decisions. Whether it was mismanaging the bullpen or the lineup, he provided no value to the 2021 White Sox. And his failures weren't just on the baseball field, they were also in the clubhouse. And when I say his clubhouse was bad, I mean a star player retired during the season because of Tony La Russa. And the player who retired was Yermin Mercedes. But how did La Russa cause him to retire? It all began with Mercedes hitting a home run in a 3-0 count. You may ask yourself, what's so bad about that? But in baseball, there's an unwritten rule that a player should not swing in a 3-0 count. And the reason is that many believe that it is poor sportsmanship, which is exactly why Tony La Russa got upset with Yermin Mercedes. And after the game, he would tell the media Mercedes made a big mistake, and there will be a consequence he has to endure with our family. One fan would respond, "Who are you? Fucking Tony Soprano?" Another fan would say, "Society has progressed past the need for Tony La Russa." And it appears that Yermin Mercedes believed the same exact thing, as he would later announce his retirement from baseball during the season, to only announce it one day later that he was coming back from baseball. Many even blame La Russa for this entire situation in the first place. But regardless of all of this team would still manage to win 93 games. But in a predictable fashion, the team would lose in round 1 of the playoffs, officially ending their season. Whereas their team-building rival, the Braves, won the World Series in 2021. So if there was one word to describe the 2021 White Sox, it would clearly be underwhelming. But 93 wins was at least something strong to build off of. They had a star shortstop in Tim Anderson, who hit for a .309 batting average in 2021, and had star-level production out of pitcher Lucas Giolito, who had a .353 ERA. With a strong core, the White Sox just needed to keep building on it. However, the front office did the exact opposite of that, adding little to no talent in the offseason, rolling it back with the same team, with the same set of problems. Whether it was injuries, Tony La Russa, or inconsistency, the 2022 White Sox would finish as a major letdown with an 81-81 record. And during the season, the clubhouse morale got so bad that it spread like a wildfire across MLB. And according to MLB reporter Bob Nightingale, guys were complaining about Tony La Russa and the front office. It's clear that change was absolutely needed. And luckily for the White Sox, La Russa would finally step down after 2022 and announce his retirement. But by now, things had already gone very bad for the organization. So was there even a chance that things could be turned around? Well, heading into 2023, it would quickly feel like every other season. Injuries with Robert Jimenez, lack of roster improvement, and another questionable managerial hire. And not even 1 month into the season, they were 7-17, and a White Sox front officeman would say that I'm not in a good place right now. However, 2023 would be the last of this regime, and the core as a whole was completely shifting, with star pitcher Lucas Giolito being sold at the trade deadline, and not only that, but former star shortstop Tim Anderson was awful in 2023. And after losing 100 games, it was clear that another rebuild was going to begin under a new front office, and franchise-altering decisions were about to happen. A lot like the life-altering decision that I made, which was downloading the Rival Fantasy app, aka the sponsor of today's video. I play fantasy baseball yearly, but I'm also a busy person who doesn't have time to check on their team daily, which is why I began playing Rival Fantasy's Best Ball. Every single day, Rival Fantasy manages my lineup for me. All I have to do is draft my team on a weekly basis, and if I draft well enough, I will win free money playing Best Ball. And if you use the link in the description and sign up now, you will get a free $25 in bonus money to use on Rival. So sign up now, and let's play ball. And in 2024, it's clear that the White Sox do not want to play ball. I mean, they failed at developing Kopech, Berger, Rodon, Madrigal, Moncada, and the list goes on. They've already traded key pieces of the team like Lucas Giolito, Jake Berger, Dylan Cease, and they are still looking to go and move more pieces. So what's next for the White Sox? Most likely a completely different direction. Under new leadership in the front office, with the team currently ranked last in the AL Central and regarded as one of baseball's worst teams, the Braves strategy has ruined the Chicago White Sox.